What is going on, everybody out there? Lamont at large. Today, we're in front of Johnson Junior High School here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And we got a doozy of a story for you. This story made nationwide media attention involving a road rage shooting and somebody being followed to their home and ultimately shot and killed. However, that's not exactly what took place. There's a lot of twists and turns and some questions in this story that are gonna make you scratch your head. Without further ado, let's get right into it. I wanna take you back to the evening of February 12th, 2015. It's 10 o'clock at night, and 44-year-old Tammy Myers is giving her daughter, Crystal, 15 years of age, driving lessons here in this very parking lot. In case anybody is wondering, why is a mom giving her daughter driving lessons at 10 p.m. at night? Vegas is a 24-hour town. There's no other city like it in the country that I've ever been to. And you do stuff like that, and it's just, ultimately, it's a normal thing. So she's teaching her how to drive, how to park, probably trying to get her to get the feel of the gas pedal and the brake, not to slam on the brakes, not to slam on the gas. And, she's going to turn 16 years old, so she's going to need to have her driver's license so she could be a self-sufficient young lady. So they're doing their thing here in the parking lot. And after, Tammy's probably, had her fill of her daughter with the driving lessons, they pull out onto the street. But before they do that, they switch seats. So Crystal gets back into the passenger and Tammy gets behind the wheel of the vehicle. So as Tammy is driving down the street right here, there's a silver car, according to Crystal, that's riding their bumper very aggressively. Now, obviously, the speed limit here is going to be probably 25 miles an hour, and this car obviously is in a hurry. So the car speeds around Tammy's car, and as they're going past Tammy, probably going to give her a dirty look or what have you, Crystal reaches over and honks the horn. That small indiscretion would change the trajectory of a family's life forever. So as she honked the horn at them, the silver car pulled ahead and just kind of swerved and stopped in the middle of the street. And a man jumps out of the car, and he is going ballistic. And basically Crystal said that he said, "I'm going to kill you and your daughter." I don't know if that's exactly what he said, but that was what was said in the interview. So the guy gets back in the car, and the car takes off. Now, immediately, Tammy, she proceeds to go home, but sadly, she would make another mistake in this story that her daughter started. Now, while that scary situation is playing out on the other side of the field of that junior high school, there is a young man who calls this park his second home. And that young man's name is Eric Nowsch. And Eric Nowsch is your prototypical white Las Vegas thug, right? Didn't necessarily come from a bad home, a bad environment. But oftentimes things occur in one's life, and we all deal with trauma the best way we can. But sometimes it's not always the best way. Now, Eric calls this place his second home because he lives right across the street from that park. And Eric is the local neighborhood weed dealer. He probably also sells other things too. Maybe he sells some pills, maybe he tinkers with a little bit of meth. I mean, who knows? But however he can make $1, that's how he's gonna do it. And he also is a rapper, right? That whole thing. He likes to rap. Now, Eric wasn't always like this. He wasn't always flashing money on his IG and carrying weapons and such like that. No, at one time he was your prototypical Las Vegas kid until around, I think it was 2010, his father sadly took his own life. And that is going to have a major effect on the psyche of a teenager that is growing up just at that time when you're trying to discover who you are as a person. And after that happened, he becomes more of a recluse, coming out here, supposedly joining a gang, probably with other local thugs here in the neighborhood. And so while that road rage incident is happening, Eric is at this park smoking weed. He's smoking weed, but he is watching everybody's move. Like cars going here, cars going there. He might be a little bit paranoid because he's been getting threats, probably via Instagram or text messages. He might have been stepping on the toes of another local neighborhood weed dealer. So he's been getting death threats for the last probably about a couple months. So he is just like kind of looking around, making sure everything is okay. And while he's doing that, he has what you need, whether it be weed, coke, pills, and speed. So as Eric is smoking his weed, being on the lookout for anybody who wants to do him harm, Tammy and her daughter, they're driving their car and they come to this cul-de-sac on Mount Shasta Circle. Now she pulls up to her house and jumps out, and she immediately goes inside and grabs her son. Now by this time it's about 10:30 at night, and Crystal goes and knocks on her brother Brandon's room, and she says, "Hey, mom wants you." So this guy is sleeping, he doesn't know what's going on. So he comes out and he says, "What's going on?" And Tammy's like, "Hey, this guy threatened to shoot me and shoot Crystal. He's gonna come to this house right here and he's gonna shoot the place up. So we gotta go out and go look for this person to defend ourselves." Defend yourselves. As some of you know, I've been involved in a couple road rage incidences in my life. Not proud of it. Very, very stupid. Normally in a situation when you go to your house to, after an incident like that occurs, you probably would want to call 911. But for some reason, Tammy wants to play police. She wants to take the law into her own hands for some unknown reason. So Brandon, he grabs his registered pistol, jumps in the car, and they peel out of there, and they come back out on the street to go look for this person who dared threaten her and her daughter while they were just innocently enough just driving down the street. Now, as Tammy and her son Brandon make a right onto this street right here, they only have to drive about a couple hundred feet, and lo and behold, there's the silver car. It's just parked right there, chilling like a villain. And she tells her son, that's the car that they got out and they threatened me and Crystal. Now, as she's telling her son that, in the car is Eric Nowsch. And he's talking to his friend, and Tammy's car, with the headlights on, pulls up, not right behind them, but close enough. And all of a sudden, young Eric gets out of the car, pulls out his .45 caliber pistol, and just starts dumping on the car right here. Pop, 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 pop. And Brandon, he has his 9mm pistol, so he pulls out his weapon and returns fire. He shoots about 4 shots off. After that, they turn around, spin out of here, and race back up on the other side of this wall towards the Meyer family home. Now, as Tammy and her son Brandon are making a left-hand turn onto Carmel Peak Lane, they come back home, making a right here on Mount Shasta Circle. And I'm not sure if they know at the time, but in hot pursuit is Eric Nowsch. And he intends at this point in time to finish what he started. So the family would have pulled into their driveway right here. I'm not exactly sure where Eric Nowsch was at the time, but he just reloaded his .45 caliber pistol and he just starts dumping on the car. Just pop, 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 pop. And I think they're estimating that a total of 20 shots or so were fired. Well, that would have been the shots fired all together. I don't know how many shots he fired here. I don't think he had an extended clip, but that home right there, again, one of those bullets finding its mark and slamming right into the head of one Tammy Myers. And after the shooting stops, Eric would take off out of here. And by this time now, this whole neighborhood has just, they're like, what the hell is going on? Like at least 15 to 20 gunshots they've heard right here at this cul-de-sac. By the time 911 was called, they rushed Tammy to the hospital, and she is fighting for her life. Meanwhile, one of the children, they called their father Bob Myers, and he's out of town at work in California. He's one of those traveling vendors, so he sells, I think like t-shirts, necklaces, hats, and stuff like that. So they tell him what I just told you, and he jumps into his truck and races back to Las Vegas to the hospital. He gets to the hospital, and the doctor, he has the very difficult job of telling Bob Myers that his wife of 25 years or so, that she is not going to make it, that she is going to die. And on Valentine's Day 2015, about a couple days or so after the shooting, he turns off the machine and she dies. I want to say the family did donate her organs before they shut the machine down. Now, when this incident occurred, I was living here in Las Vegas, and I lived barely a mile and a half away. So this was huge news, and I was actually very surprised to see that it made nationwide news, because this story was on ABC News. So the police, they're questioning Brandon, they're questioning Crystal, and they're wanting Crystal to tell them what the description of the person was. So she tries to best describe the person from the incident with the road rage. She said the guy that jumped out of the car was 6 feet tall, and basically looks like this composite sketch. Now, for the next 6 days, the whole city of Las Vegas, all the cops, Henderson PD, everybody, they're looking for this guy, about 6 feet tall, maybe weighs about 160 pounds. They're not looking for Eric Nowsch, because Eric Nowsch doesn't fit the description of the suspect that people thought was the one that killed Tammy Myers. So maybe about 3 days later, Eric, he goes to the house of a friend of his. It's a girl that he sells pills to, I think. Her name is Caitlin Christian, and her and Eric Nowsch, they're friends. And Eric rolls up to her house and he's like, I got those kids. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he says, I got those kids, the ones that were after me, the ones that were threatening me. He goes, I shot at them. I shot them up. And she's listening to his story, and the way he describes the story sounds an awful lot like the story I just told you. So he sells her whatever it is that she wanted, and then he leaves the house. Now, Caitlin calls herself a very, very good friend of Eric, but that story's bothering her. So she's thinking, should I turn my friend in? Because I think he's the one that killed that lady. So she calls the police and she says, hey, my friend just told me a crazy story that sounds like the one that's been blasted all over TV. And so the police, they get the information. Now, this part of the story, from the top of my head, I should do a better job, because I did speak to Eric Nowsch briefly, though, because we were having telephone issues. So Eric lived in that house right there in the middle of your screen. And I want to say at the time that they first talked to him about this story, he was in juvenile hall. He had a juvenile warrant, which they released him on. So when they find out his address and everything, 6 days later, they come to this home. Now, this whole entire neighborhood is just, you got SWAT, you got probably 25 cops out here. And I want to say for about 2 hours or so, they're telling Eric to come out with his hands up. And this dude, Eric, he's in the house. He's just smoking all the weed he can. He's smoking all the weed because he knows he's going down, and he's going to be going down for a long time. So finally, after 2 hours, he's high as a kite. He's probably never smoked so much weed in his life. So he comes out, gives himself up, and they cuff him. And one of the news media photographers, they take his picture. Now, they start then, letting everybody know this is the guy that was wanted in the murder of Tammy Myers. Now, however, there's this story is going to get even more difficult to kind of explain. Like I said, I was living here in Las Vegas at the time that this shooting occurred. Now, the story that I just explained to you, nobody knew this at the time. This got so much media attention because the police, they thought that from the road rage incident that happened 2 blocks down the street, they're thinking that the guy got out of his car, said, I'm going to kill you and your daughter. And they think that everyone in the country thinks that they followed Tammy to her house and shot and killed her. Like a totally innocent victim of some madman's road rage. Now, it wouldn't come out until later on, the story that I just told you. Okay, so when the story was being played on the media, I remember Bob Myers was very in the front and center of this story. I thought it was a little odd, only because normally stories like this that get all this kind of crazy media attention, usually the family, they're not going to be wanting to do interviews with, especially with local reporters, because local reporters don't pay any money. Sometimes it just really does come down to money, and they don't really do that. But Bob Myers is really wanting to get the story out and look for the person that shot and killed his wife. Now, when the entire city, the country, the world, whoever is watching this story play out, once everybody realizes that this was not a situation where a woman was followed home after a road rage incident and shot and killed, that this woman actually went home after the road rage incident and went to go get her armed son to go look for this guy. Once people figured out what happened with that, everybody started vilifying this poor woman. Now, I will say, yes, there was several mistakes made in this story. And one of the mistakes was Crystal honking the horn, because if she would have never honked the horn, Tammy would have never came out with her son armed with a handgun looking for vengeance. And Tammy made a mistake, because if she would not have done that and instead would have called the police, she would have never left her home. She would have never gotten shot and killed. So the family now, they're just getting, the comments on the YouTube videos and the Facebook and all this. And it's like 99%, maybe not 99%. I remember it was like at least 80%, 85% of people were anti Tammy Myers. They were like, you brought this on yourself. You went out seeking revenge and you effed around and you found out and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, this is going on, and the family is getting all kinds of threats and harassment, and So Eric, now he's downtown, and now the cops, they're interviewing him in the interrogation room, and they're basically saying, oh, hey, man, what happened? Now, Eric tells them the story of him being in the car right over there where I was just at, and he saying that a car came up behind him, and he thought it was somebody that had been threatening him over the course of several months. So he got out and started, firing, defending himself. But Eric never mentioned the first incident when Crystal and her mom were driving down that street. We have 2 silver cars. So they think that Eric Nowsch is the guy that was involved in the road rage to begin with, when the guy that got out of the car. They're thinking that Eric was in the car. But Eric never mentioned anything about that incident. He only talked about when he was there and a car came up from behind him. So they originally, after they arrested him, they charged him with murder and probably the use of a dangerous weapon. Now, they know that at that time, Eric was not driving the car. It was somebody else, and Eric would not snitch on the person. I give Eric credit, regardless of what he did or what he didn't do, because we're going to get into that part of the story towards the end. He did not snitch on the guy that was driving him on that night. Got to give it to him. They threatened him all they could with, if you don't give us the driver who was driving you around, that you're looking at a death penalty. And he would not say who it was, but of course later on it would be found out exactly who he was. So this guy right here was later arrested and charged with Tammy's murder as well, 21-year-old Derek Andrews. Now, this is another guy that does not look like the type of person who commits these kinds of crimes. And Derek, he has a silver Audi. Now, police are thinking possibly, because if I didn't mention, Eric Nowsch is a very small dude. He's about 5'3". And Derek Andrews, he's quite a bit taller than Eric. So maybe they're thinking, was that the composite sketch of the guy who jumped out and was yelling? But as you can see on the screen, that is not him. That doesn't look like him. So later on, after everything is figured out, it appears that this was 2 separate cars, believe it or not. This was 2 separate cars, 2 separate incidences. And you have one incident where this guy, who's probably still out to this day, somewhere out there in Las Vegas, or maybe he moved, he was a hothead and he felt that the car was driving too slow, and he got out and yelled at them. And then you have a separate silver car, and this is the prosecution's theory. You have a second silver car, the Audi, that was driven by Derek Andrews, and Eric probably calling his friend and saying, hey man, these guys are after me, man. I need a ride. I need to get out of here. You know what I mean? And when he's in the car, he's already paranoid. They just come up behind him, and he thinks it's the people that have been threatening him and his mom and his baby sister for the last several months. So after everything was said and done, Derek Andrews pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter and accessory to second-degree murder. He was sentenced to, I want to say it was like 10 to 15 years in prison. However, I don't believe he's in prison anymore. I think he got paroled. I want to say he ended up getting paroled in 2023. So he did about 8 years or so in prison. So he's a free man. Eric Nowsch, looking at all of the evidence, decided to plead guilty to second-degree murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and also the murder being enhanced with use of that deadly weapon. So he pleads guilty. However, before his sentencing, he wants to withdraw his plea. He wants to plead innocent, because now all of a sudden he feels he's innocent in this matter. Now, I've seen the episode of 2020. I think it was one of those news organizations that this story was on. And I mean, in the interrogation video, he is very, very sad. There is no doubt about it. Eric Nowsch was very, very sad for what took place. And another weird aspect of this story that I don't understand was that they were saying that Tammy knew Eric, that she would see him around the neighborhood. She would sometimes give him money. They claimed that he had actually had dinner at the family's home one time or another. And, she would tell him as, she would see him in the neighborhood, hey, pull up your pants. You gotta, be like a man, act like a man. Now, from what I remember speaking to Eric, we were having phone issues. So he did say that he did know Tammy, but he didn't know her that well, nor did he know her children. He might have went to school with one of her sons, but they weren't friends. So if Eric were walking in the park doing whatever, if he were to see one of her kids, he would not say hello because they weren't friendly. They weren't cool. It's not like they were enemies. They just didn't know each other. And as you can see from where he lives, he literally lives 1 block away from where the Myers family used to live. So that part of the story is very, very weird. So he wants to take back his guilty plea, but the court, they're not allowing it. So he goes for sentencing, and they give him life in prison with the possibility of parole after about 10 years. So he has already gone up before the parole board in 2024. He was denied. I don't exactly know when his next parole date is. If I do talk to Eric, which I do intend on speaking to him again, it'll be up on the screen. And I'm going to say this. Eric is saying that he's innocent of this. Now, you guys know how I feel about people who claim they're innocent, but possibly, and I have already offered him, if you wanted to do an interview with me, we'll do a telephone interview and we can talk about his side of the story. I will give him a chance to explain himself. So look for that possibly if he still decides that he wants to do it. But ultimately, just from the story that I told you, this is just, it was a terrible story of a lady, a mom of 3, a mom of 4, excuse me, I believe 4 children she had, who was shot and killed over a series of weird events, mistakes, whatever the word you want to use. A woman sadly lost her life. And this could have all been avoided through several different steps. Neither here nor there. It happened sadly. And what can you do? All right, guys. Lamont here. Always at the scene of the crime. I'll catch up with you in the next video. Peace out.